Our final plenary presentation is titled, Don't Let Your Project Sink, Achieving Zero Rework Through Effective Supplier Quality Practices. As we all know, the quality of the suppliers on a project has a great effect on the outcome of a project. Research Team 308 addresses this topic and has developed some practices to deal with it, including a supplier quality process map, a simulation process for estimating supplier quality, and the use of surveillance. Our presenter is Tricia Thibodeaux, Houston Office Manager of Project Management and Operations for Fluor Corporation. Please welcome Tricia Thibodeaux.
So what can we learn from the lessons of the Titanic disaster? The truth is we are still experiencing supplier quality issues on our projects today. Our team focused on this essential question: what are the most effective processes and practices for ensuring that project materials and equipment are produced, manufactured, or fabricated in strict accordance with all applicable specifications, and that they are delivered to the project site without any need for rework? Our team is comprised of members representing academia, owners, contractors, and a special subset of contractors for CII, our suppliers. In order to research this topic, our team collected and analyzed data from several sources. First, a literature review both inside and outside of the construction industry, supplier quality documents currently being used by member companies, including reports and procedures, supplier focus groups to get the supplier's point of view, survey data which captured practices used and outcomes achieved on recent purchase orders, and interviews with contractors and suppliers at their facilities. From the qualitative data collected, we developed a supplier quality process map. A simplified process map is shown here. We found that just as we can learn from lessons from the Titanic, the builders of the Titanic could have also benefited from utilizing our work processes. Now let's walk through the process map step by step. The first stage is planning and selection. The Titanic builders could not procure enough materials for the 3 ships being built simultaneously. The use of new materials, meaning the steel rivets, dictated which suppliers could be used. The builders selected lower grade material in certain areas to save money and production time. They would have benefited from a more stringent planning and selection process. The second stage is execution. In the Titanic example, unqualified riveters were used because they did not have enough skilled workers. In-process inspections held during execution would have been beneficial. In our work process, there are actually 3 distinct completion inspections, one at release from shop, one at received at site, and one at mechanical completion. While these steps did not directly apply to the Titanic, there was a certifying body for shipbuilding. Upon completion, the inspection company inspected to older standards because there were no established methods to examine the newer steel rivets. The wrought iron rivets were examined by a simple sound test. Also note the feedback loop that captures supplier performance and is used in future supplier selection. Like our projects today, the builders of the Titanic were under immense schedule pressure, driven by the fact that they had already sold tickets for the maiden voyage on a specific date. Wanting to maintain the good reputation of the firm drove them to make bad decisions during production by taking shortcuts to achieve their schedule. Let me share a couple of key results with you here that we will further expand upon in our implementation session. Through the supplier focus groups and contractor interviews, we found that certain companies were consistently identified as more effective in their application of supplier quality practices. And the data collected in our quantitative analysis confirmed this. One of our key results is that companies who were more diligent in their application of supplier quality practices were able to find and correct supplier defects earlier in the life of the project, directly impacting cost and schedule. Another key outcome was the creation and validation of a model utilizing the supplier quality work process. We will review the model in more detail during our implementation session and also show you how to use this cost of non-quality chart to estimate the cost of non-quality, decide between various suppliers during the bidding process based on the total delivered cost, and determine whether applying higher levels of inspection to a lower cost supplier will be worth the investment. So wouldn't you like to have a tool to select from suppliers of differing fabrication capabilities or predict your cost of rework before you place the purchase order? If so, get your boarding pass to attend our implementation session. As you enter the session, you will receive a boarding pass at random for either supplier, contractor, or owner. Learn about how we conducted research to determine supplier quality work practices and how to use our implementation resource. The implementation resource includes a supplier quality process map and RACI matrix, instructions for estimating the cost of non-quality, a glossary of terms and acronyms, and a discussion on total delivered cost. Besides your boarding pass, you will leave with a bifold handout, which includes the most useful parts of the implementation resource, and a flash drive with a conference edition of the research summary and implementation resource. Both of these publications are available on the annual conference download page. So during the implementation session, we will explain the methods that we used and the supplier quality process map in more detail. We'll demonstrate the impact of identifying non-conformances across several stages of the supply process and how to utilize the cost trade-off curves that I showed earlier to incorporate resource decisions into the supplier selection process. The implementation session will be an interactive session to give you insight into whether your current work processes will help your project to make the trek across the Atlantic or if your project will sink. So where are the rivets in your project? Did you perform the proper supplier quality work processes required to survive? We have an excellent set of panelists representing academia, suppliers, contractors, and owners. You can get your boarding pass at Grand Ballroom 1 and 2 with sessions setting sail at 1 and 2:15 today. We hope to see you there. Thank you.